Ask any seasoned tourer. The most important part of your bike isn't the luggage or the GPS. It is the beating heart of the machine, the engine. And while almost any bike can complete a trip, some engines have earned a reputation for being ticking time bombs on extended rides. That is why we have broken down 12 engines you should never fully trust on a motorcycle trip. And trust me, number 7 is a real heartbreaker. Number 12. Harley-Davidson Twin Cam 888. You know how you buy a Harley expecting that deep V-twin roar to carry you mile after mile without drama. But with the Twin Cam 88, beneath the heritage is a risk many riders never see coming. For models built between 1999 and around 2006, Harley used spring-loaded cam chain tensioners with plastic shoes. Over time, those plastic shoes rub against a sharp metal cam chain and eventually begin to shed fragments. The trouble begins with those early spring-loaded cam chain tensioners. Harley used plastic shoes to keep the chain in line, and every time that V-twin fires, the chain grinds those plastic pads a little thinner. Eventually, the material starts to crumble. Once those fragments enter the oiling system, the pump can no longer maintain pressure. When that happens, lubrication collapses, heat skyrockets, and internal components seize without mercy. Riders describe it the same way. No warning lights, no strange clatter, just a sudden loss of power followed by silence on the shoulder of some forgotten highway. Add the rocker box seepage, the wandering crank runout, and the persistent vibration issues, and the platform becomes an unpredictable travel partner. One that asks the rider to trust luck more than engineering. Upgrades exist, sure, but countless engines still run the original setup, waiting for the moment stress reveals their weakest link. The one we just looked at is the kind of engine that slowly betrays you. It does not explode. It just wears you down with heat, vibration, and constant petty problems. But that slow type failure is only one kind of danger on a long trip. Because the next engine, it does not wait to nibble away at your patience. When it fails, it does it suddenly, without warning, in a way that has stranded riders in the middle of nowhere, more times than anyone cares to count. Number 11. Kawasaki KLR650. The infamous doohickey motor. This engine earns its spot on the list for one reason: a tiny part with a silly nickname that can ruin an entire adventure. Inside, the early KLR650 beats a single-cylinder thumper that should be simple and trustworthy. Yet its balancer chain tensioner, the so-called doohickey, became one of the most feared weak points in dual sport history. The factory lever was stamped thin, welded cheaply, and paired with a spring that often lost tension long before the rest of the bike even broke a sweat. When that lever bends or fractures, the counterbalance chain can wander loose through the crankcase. You end up with harsh vibration, chain slap, and in the worst moments, metal debris floating through your lubrication system. Some riders catch the failure early. Others discover the damage only when the engine locks solid on the side of a lonely back road a few thousand miles from home. That unpredictability is what makes this motor so unnerving for long-distance travel. Plenty of riders upgrade the part, and once corrected, the engine becomes far more dependable. But at least randomness gives you hope. Maybe you get lucky. The next engine gives you no such mercy. Its problems are not random at all. They are baked right into the design, and once the trip gets long, the weak points show up like clockwork. Number 10. BMW F800 Parallel Twin. The F800 Parallel Twin has earned a loyal following, but when your trip leads you deep into the backcountry, this is one engine you may want to think twice about trusting. On paper, it is a straightforward 798 cubic centimeter twin. In real-world use, especially in the early production years, riders uncovered a string of mechanical quirks that could transform a dream route into a breakdown story. The trouble starts with the cam chain system. Owners repeatedly reported cold start chain, rattle, and weak spring tensioners that allowed the chain to chatter long before any long-distance engine should. Then came the electrical failures, most notoriously stators that overheated and burned out without warning, leaving the engine unable to charge and stranding riders miles from the nearest outlet or passerby. Add in accounts of premature bearing wear, unsteady idle, and occasional fuel system hiccups, and you get a power plant with just enough unpredictability to keep you nervous on a long haul. Some engines run flawlessly, others act up at the worst possible time, and when parts availability varies from region to region, a simple failure can escalate into days of waiting. If this information helps you make a more informed decision before trusting these engines on a long ride, hit that like button, drop a hype, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue sharing practical, potentially life-saving insights for riders who take their journeys seriously. And all of this points to a deeper pattern, one that is impossible to miss when we get to the next engine. Let us call out that trap too. Number 9. Triumph Tiger 800 Triple. The first generation Tiger 800 Triple is one of those engines that lures you in with charm, that smooth British growl, that eager mid-range, that promise of go-anywhere confidence. But take it far from civilization, and the truth shows up fast. This is a power plant with a history of small flaws that can snowball into big problems when you are days from the nearest town. Owners have long reported unpredictable fueling behavior, stalling at low speed, and idle stepper glitches that cause the engine to cough and die exactly when you need steady control. Others describe creeping heat that builds under the seat on hot days, along with oil seepage from gaskets and seals that should last far longer on an adventure-ready motor. And then there is the electrical side, stators and regulator rectifiers that fail more often than a long-distance traveler can comfortably accept. When the charging system collapses, the Triple does not sputter or limp home. It simply quits, leaving you with a dead battery and a long walk. Some riders upgrade components and never see trouble again. Many older engines, especially used ones with unknown histories, never received those fixes. That uncertainty alone can turn a long trip into a gamble. With that previous engine, technology was the enemy, sensors, modules, and fuel systems that collapse when you need them most. But too much tech is not the only path to unreliability. Some engines fail for the exact opposite reason. Old school engineering pushed well beyond the limits it was ever meant to handle. The next one looks simple on the outside, but that simplicity is exactly why it falls apart on long, demanding stretches. Number 8. Honda V4 Chocolate Cam Era. The early Honda V4 should have been a masterpiece, a bold new layout, a smooth pulse, a soundtrack riders still dream about. But beneath that innovation lived a flaw so infamous, it earned a nickname no engine ever wants: the chocolate cam. And if you are prepping for a long, unforgiving trip, this is one piece of Honda history you should think twice about trusting. Those early 80s motors, from the VF 500 to the VF 750 and the VF 1000, carried camshafts and top-end oiling systems that simply were not up to the task. Oil flow to the upper end was inconsistent, cam lobes wore fast, and bearings suffered premature scoring. Many owners opened their valve covers to find pitting, flaking, or in severe cases, cam lobes worn nearly flat. Push the engine hard or stretch your oil intervals, and the damage accelerated. Once those cams begin to deteriorate, timing can drift, valves can crash, and the entire top end becomes a liability rather than a strength. The weakness we just saw comes from an engine that was never designed for the kind of punishment a real trip demands. Overheating, oil starvation, and material fatigue all pile up the longer you ride. But the engine waiting for us next has a different problem. It was designed for long rides. It just was not built well enough to survive them. The failures here are not about design philosophy. They are about quality control, or the lack of it. Number 7. Ducati's Desmoquattro V4 engine. Now, there are engines that make you smile, and then there are engines that make you stare. Ducati's Desmoquattro V4 is absolutely in that second category. It is theatrical, it is musical, it is a downright piece of Italian sculpture that just happens to rev. But when you are packing up for a long motorcycle trip across wide-open American miles, that beauty carries a hidden price, and it is a price you really do not want to pay on the side of an empty highway. The Desma Quattro era, the power plants behind icons like the 916, the 996, and the 998 earned their reputation with sharp throttle response and soul-stirring performance. What most riders do not talk about is how fragile that brilliance can become if even a single maintenance deadline is ignored. These engines rely on timing belts that demand ruthless discipline. Let those belts age out, or let a previous owner forget a major service, and the risk jumps from mild inconvenience to bent valves, destroyed top-end components, and a stop-dead bike that will not fire again until a specialist tears it apart. And if that failure happens on a long trip, you are not pushing this machine to the next gas station. You are calling a tow truck and watching the dollars disappear. And the timing belts are only one part of the story. Desmodromic valve trains need consistent adjustment. The lubrication system expects quality oil changes, and every service interval must be documented and recent. The older these engines get, the more critical those records become, because one missing inspection can turn your dream Ducati into a rolling gamble. This brings us to the halfway point of the 12 engines you should never trust on a motorcycle trip. We would like to hear from you as well. Which engine failed you around 11,000 miles, and what lessons would you pass on to new riders? Share your stories, it helps us support each other and ride with greater awareness. And that last engine was a victim of poor manufacturing, parts that wear too fast, clearances that shift, and components that do not age gracefully under pressure. But the next one, its problem goes much deeper than quality. This one has a structural flaw, a flaw so fundamental that even perfect maintenance cannot fully protect you. And when that flaw shows up on a long trip, the bill is not measured in dollars. It is measured in how far you have to push the bike to the nearest town. Number 6, Suzuki TL1000 engine, the rear rotary damper era. This V-twin sounds like the kind of motor you would bet your life on. That deep rolling pulse feels solid, fearless, unstoppable. But once you get past the soundtrack, the truth shows up fast. This engine carries a handful of problems that can sabotage any long-distance trip. The first warning sign lives in the timing system. The cam chain tensioners on these motors are notorious for losing their fight early, creating a rattle that can escalate into full upper-end trouble if you ignore it. And when that tensioner finally gives up, you are not tightening a bolt on the shoulder of the highway, you are tearing into the top of the engine. Then there is the upper-end wear. Some TL1000 motors develop cam bearing fatigue far sooner than they should, starting as a faint metallic whisper and evolving into a failure that ends the ride with zero mercy. Heat compounds everything. The rear cylinder traps its own temperature, and once it overheats, ignition behavior becomes unpredictable. Random shutdowns, rough hot starts, sudden spark loss. Riders describe it as the kind of problem that waits for the worst possible moment to strike. The danger with this engine is not just the structural flaw, it is how that flaw becomes unavoidable the longer you ride. You can nurse it for a while, but distance exposes every weak point. But what comes next is even more frustrating, because the next engine fails in a way you cannot predict or prevent. It runs perfectly one moment, then drops a crucial component the next, turning a long ride into a roadside repair session you never asked for. Number 5, Royal Enfield UCE 500 single. You know that moment when a slow, steady beat from a big single makes you feel like the engine is carved from granite? The UCE 500 leans hard on that illusion. It looks honest, it sounds nostalgic, but underneath that charm sits a collection of issues that make this power plant one of the most deceptively risky engines you could take on a real cross-country journey. Start with the leaks, the ones that never quite go away. Seepage from the head, the side covers, or the gearbox area creeps out over time, turning your relaxed tour into a constant game of where is the oil going now? Long trips demand steady lubrication. This engine has a habit of slowly wandering. Then come the cold start dramas, the misfires under load, the fuel pump hiccups, and the injector inconsistencies. Riders report that the UCE 500 can act unpredictable in heat, altitude, or cold mornings, the exact moments when you need absolute dependability. And the vibration? Brutal. At highway speeds, this engine hammers the bars, shakes the foot pegs, and wears down gaskets, mounts, and your patience. Add the stories of rod-bearing knock, sloppy assembly, piston slap, and early top-end troubles, and you get a motor that simply cannot be trusted to stay composed when the miles stretch long. This engine is the definition of inconsistency. Smooth 1 hour, catastrophic the next. But inconsistency is still better than the problem waiting for us now. The next engine does not fail because of a sudden part failure. It fails because the entire system runs too close to its limits. Heat, load, and vibration slowly overwhelm it. And on long trips, that slow burn becomes a guaranteed breakdown. Number 4. BMW's early liquid-cooled or 1200 boxer engine. Some machines impress you right out of the gate, and then hours later show you a side you wish you had never met. That is the tale of BMW's first liquid-cooled R1200 boxer engines, the power plants that arrived in the early 2000 teens promising a bold new chapter. On paper, they were the future: tighter packaging, stronger output, modern electronics. But in the real world, early examples revealed quirks that can derail even the most carefully planned trip. One of the biggest trouble spots came from the fuel system. Riders and technicians reported cracked pump flanges, leaking fuel components, and software glitches that caused erratic fueling. A machine that stumbles, cuts out, or dribbles fuel on a long tour is not just annoying, it is a hazard, especially when the next town is many miles away. Then came the seepage issues. Early owners described higher than expected oil usage, sweating seals, and lubrication leaks from tensioners and bolts. When an engine starts losing fluids on a multi-day ride, you either baby it at every stop or roll the dice on a failure you cannot afford. In the drivetrain, early generation gearbox and shaft complaints sometimes showed up as engine-like failures, sudden lockups, harsh vibration, or rear drive issues that can end a ride instantly. What we just saw is an engine that collapses under sustained pressure, too much strain, too much heat, too many miles back to back. But the next engine is not undone by endurance. Its problem is fragility. Even under normal riding conditions, tiny internal weaknesses start to grow. And once your trip stretches into hundreds of miles, that fragility becomes a time bomb ticking louder with every stop. Number 3. Yamaha R1 early engines. The Yamaha R1's first-generation engine is a masterclass in performance, but also a cautionary tale for anyone planning a serious long-distance trip. Sleek, compact, and screaming from idle to redline, it delivers the kind of excitement riders dream about. Yet underneath that aluminum casing lies a set of vulnerabilities that can turn a high-speed thrill into a mechanical nightmare. Early R1 engines from 1998 through 2003 introduced a stacked gearbox and ultra-compact layout to maximize power. That clever packaging also concentrates stress on critical components. Second gear wear, clutch sensitivity, and sprocket fatigue are well documented, leaving the potential for an immobilizing failure miles from help. Add in the X-Up system, Yamaha's clever power valve mechanism, and you have another point of concern. Stuck or seized servos can produce overheating, rough running, and mid-range loss, exactly when you need consistent performance. Owner forms, technical threads, and historical recall records reveal a pattern. Transmission recalls, crankshaft or balancer interference, and even catastrophic internal failures. The lesson is clear for a long-distance adventure. The engine requires obsessive maintenance, valve checks, X-Up servicing, fluid refreshes, and gearbox inspection. AR1 early engines suffered from microscopic problems that grow into massive failures, cracks, wear patterns, and internal stresses that multiply with every mile. But the next one flips the script. There is nothing subtle about its failures. When this engine goes wrong, it does it loudly, violently, and without remorse. And when you are far from home, nothing ends a trip faster than an engine that tries to tear itself apart. Number 2. Harley-Davidson's Revolution X. The liquid-cooled gamble. Lift the tank and look straight at the Revolution X V-twin, the engine that powers the Street 500 and Street 750, and on the surface it feels like a promise. Modern, liquid-cooled, wearing that famous American badge. But the deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. This power plant was built to a price, not to a standard you would trust across hundreds or thousands of lonely miles. One of the biggest red flags is the fuel pump fiasco. More than 10,000 units were recalled because a cheap inlet seal could starve the engine under hard acceleration. Imagine overtaking a truck on a remote highway when the motor suddenly coughs, stumbles, and leaves you rolling backward into danger. That is not a mere inconvenience. That is a trip ender. Then there is the power ceiling. The 500 cubic centimeter version makes roughly mid-30 horsepower and only about 40 pound-feet of torque. Add luggage, wind, hills, or a passenger, and the engine starts to feel strained long before the journey has even begun. Riders constantly describe it as underpowered, especially when cruising at real highway speeds. This engine is chaos made mechanical, loud failures, shattered components, and breakdowns that hit you like a punch to the gut. But as destructive as it was, at least you could see the danger coming. It gave off warning signs, noises, vibrations, little clues that told you to slow down, listen, and maybe turn back before things went completely wrong. And the engine waiting at the final spot is far more dangerous because it hides its intentions behind a calm face. It starts smooth, it idles clean, it gives you confidence you have no business feeling. And that false sense of security is exactly what turns this final engine into a trap. Number 1. Suzuki's DR650 single-cylinder engine. The Suzuki DR650 has a cult following, and for short rides it absolutely earns its reputation for being simple, friendly, and capable. But when you stretch the miles, load the luggage, and point the front wheel toward real isolation, the truth shows up fast. This engine carries hidden weaknesses that can destroy a long-distance trip. The biggest threat is the countershaft seal. When it lets go, it can dump oil onto the back tire, and a sudden, slick rear wheel miles from help is a nightmare no rider deserves. Then there is the primary gear crank nut, which has a history of working loose on vibration, heavy motors, and turning the inside of the engine into shrapnel. And the neutral sending unit, screws. If one drops into the gearbox, the engine can grenade instantly with zero warning. And with that, you have reached the end of the 12 engines you should never trust on a motorcycle trip. But there are countless other hidden traps and a fair number of truly dependable choices that riders deserve to know about. We are committed to finding them and bringing the information to you in a clear, practical way. If you want to dive deeper, simply move on to the next video. Like, drop a hype, and subscribe. Let us hit the open road and embrace the thrill of motorcycling together.